What if Cinderace was in Gen 1 OU? Now, don't we have a fun one to go over? You can already tell by the moveset that even though this thing isn't as good as it would have been if it was in Sword and Shield, it would be a pretty good Pokemon in Gen 1 OU. And probably one of the better fire types. I say that with a question mark because it's kind of weird, but even though its moveset's really great for a incredibly fast Pokemon such as this, I almost feel like you would kind of want to mess with its stats a little bit. I think that's mostly because, well, if I'm being real, the physical special split is really missed right here. 65 special attack is usable. That's Snorlax's special attack. And the difference between you and Snorlax is that you actually have stab. A high base power stab move, in fact. But still, it's a little annoying. You wish you just had physical fire stab. But regardless, you do have two pretty good niches in Gen 1 that other Pokemon don't really have. Now for starters, at 119, you are easily the fastest Trapper in the entire game. The second fastest is Rapidash. Yeah, Rapidash, which I believe is 105 speed. So, yeah, you're beating that easily. And with Fire Spin, that's already a pretty good start. But if it's just that alone, it probably wouldn't be enough. I say that because of Rapidash, but then again, 105 speed is only outspeeding Zapdos and Jinx in terms of fast Pokemon. Being able to outspeed everything but Aerodactyl and Jolteon with a trapping move is a much bigger deal. So it's possible that with that alone, Cinderace would see usage. But it gets even better, because it gets high jump kick with a pretty good attack stat. You have super effective coverage against the normal types, which you are faster than. Being faster than Tauros is a big deal. That's already pretty good. But what's even better is Super Fang. Now, Super Fang makes things very interesting, because the only other Pokemon with Super Fang in Gen 1 is Raticate. And that's enough to where you can maybe consider it. Being able to two-shot literally everything, and I do mean everything, because even though it's a normal type move, Gengar is not immune to it. So you can 2-hit KO Gengar, you can 2-hit KO Rhydon, literally everything. And that is great. Especially with this speed, and with the trapping move, and with able to hit on both the physical and special side. Nothing in the game is safe from Cinderace. It can do, at the bare minimum, half damage to everything. And since it's fast, even if there's nothing else you can do, at the bare minimum, it's doing a pretty good percentage to anything your opponent has. And these aren't even the only moves. We also have its signatures. Unfortunately, Chord Change I don't think works, which is a shame because since Reflect is permanent in Gen 1, if you could switch a Snorlax or Chansey's Reflect, and you basically get rid of your Earthquake weakness, that in of itself would be huge. Pyro Ball works as normal, but while it's more accurate, I think it's technically the same base power, but while Fire Blast is a little less accurate, you have a 30% chance to burn as opposed to 10. And you're mainly using it for the burn chance, so nope, you're not really considering Pyro Ball. I feel like you wish you were able to put Hyper Beam on, but you really do wish you can use this move. You just don't have like the slots for it, but it's worth considering. Same with Agility if you want to just not care about Paralysis. Overall, a pretty good moveset, good stats. A pure Fire type isn't very good defensively. It's ironic, but in Gen 1, Fire kind of acts like a worse version of how Ice is supposed to act in other gens, where it's a blast cannon. Ironically, Ice isn't like that in Gen 1, because just in Ice resistance and Freeze immunity, it's just that big a deal. Meanwhile, it isn't as big a deal to be immune to burn. But still, overall, a pretty good Pokemon. But what were you expecting? It's really fast. Now let's start off with the boy himself, and we got Tauros. And this is definitely interesting, because Cinderace is faster, but neither High Jump Kick or Fire Blast are 2-hit KOs. So your best bet is probably just going for just Fire Blast, trying to get the burn. And even though you're scared, Tauros is equally scared, both of crits as well as for a burn. So it's a quickly the way where both sides absolutely hate the matchup and are only going to consider it if the other one is paralyzed. Meanwhile, Snorlax, I think this is technically better, but it's, I don't think it actually matters. Like, I think it's, like, equal with Tauros. Could go either way. Earthquake could be a big deal. If it's Amnesia Wax, you just kind of get a free win. But still, could be dangerous. Both of them could be incredibly dangerous without getting a burn. And you know what? Speaking of status, here's Chansey, and this replay was pretty annoying, so I'll just put on fast. Because, yeah, this is a replay where Chansey gets some pretty good paralysis luck. So I guess it is worth saying, outside of paralysis being Cinderace's main issue, the second would definitely be its bulk. And even here, for Chansey, it's using a set damage move, but like, you don't have a rival recovery. And my Cinderace during these replays was super unlucky. Like, for 119 speed, I felt like it should have been getting way more crits than it was supposed to. But for this, it doesn't matter too much. That crit rate is just way too good. You are just not risking it with Chansey. You're getting out of there. Zam, on the other hand, does not have to worry about that. Now, Zam is actually faster than, Cinderace, which is a big deal. It's only by 1 point, which is hilarious, but still, being able to paralyze Cinderace, and even if, like, both are paralyzed, Cinderace has to rely on Fire Blast, because obviously Zam would resist High Jump Kick. It is pretty bad for Cinderace, and there's not much you can really do there. And for Cloyster, there's a little bit more you can do, but it's just trapping. You don't know when you're going to get the crit on Fire Blast, so it's way better and more consistent just to go for a Fire Spin. And who really wants to sit through that? I know I don't. So, like, screw this matchup. Both sides hate it. But, like, I guess technically Cloyster is more consistent. Both because Clamp's more accurate, and because it's super effective versus neutral. At least for Executor, you, as you would imagine, have a spectacular matchup against it. You could just go for Fire Spin until you get the range, which seems to be 50 exactly. So, like, kind of unlucky there getting the burn, but, like, still, it doesn't matter too much. Executor probably wasn't staying in the first place. Now, here's a replay I found interesting. Obviously, just being fast, worst case scenario, you can always just trap something. So, no match for Cinderace is truly unwinnable unless they're, like, faster. But Super Fang is the only reason you kind of stand a chance here. Otherwise, Gengar's special would be a little bit too good. Look at this. Even with a special drop, you can just stall with Fire Spin. And I guess it's worth saying, normally Fire Spin is only used for pivoting, like for obvious reasons. But for Cinderace, since your crit rate is so good, I think it's a rare case where it's genuinely maybe worth considering Fire Spin, both for pivoting and also just for fishing crits. Because Cinderace can get a lot of crits, and Fire Spin crits can most certainly add up over time. Now, Jolteon being faster is a huge issue here. And without any, like, immediate way to kill it, it's just... yeah, Jolteon is not having, like... or not Jolteon, Cinderace. Or I guess they're both having a pretty bad time now that I look at this. A burn is not the worst thing in the world for Jolteon. But, like... Fire Blast, I think it actually did more than I thought at 30%. Actually, this might be more of a could go either way. I don't know. Would you put it as a could go either way or a bad matchup? Let me know in the comments below. And let me know if you think Jinx will survive a Fire Spin plus Fire Blast. Okay, you probably saw that coming, but you should comment anyways. Comments are good for the YouTube algorithm, as my dry bread would say. Now, next up, we have Rhydon. And to my surprise, even without a burn, you can survive Earthquake. Maybe. I wouldn't rely on it. But I also wouldn't rely on Cinderace to beat Rhydon, period. But it's interesting that Cinderace technically has options. With the burn, you can survive. With Fire Spin, you might be able to put in range. High Jump Kick is super effective. And between a critical Fire Blast and High Jump Kick, I guess with a crit, a Fire Blast does more. But obviously, like, this is a non-critical hit High Jump Kick. But I still think it's probably best to go for Fire Blast first. That way you can see if you get the burn, which obviously is just good in general. But I'm not sure. Like, just avoid Rhydon if you can, obviously. But I don't think I need to tell you that. I also think I need to tell you how this goes. Like, what the heck is Cinderace going to do against Slowbro? Super Fang is even good here because it has Rest. And it's not like set damage like Seismic Toss. It's always going to do half, so Slowbro really doesn't care. It even resists High Jump Kick. It's just hilarious how much of a one-sided matchup that is. And this is debatably worse. I suppose theoretically for both Starmie and Slowbro, you can Fire Spin them to death, but I definitely wouldn't count on it, especially when both of them have Thunder Wave. You only need to miss once for them to just win the game automatically. And Starmie doesn't even need Surf. It is more than fine recovering off all of the Super Fang power points. Also heard that Super Fang is even 100% accurate. But it's a shame though, because you're one of the few things that's actually faster than Starmie. So at the very least, being able to outspeed, trap it, and Fire Spin for a safe pivot, that's honestly a pretty big deal. It means that this isn't the worst thing in the world. But in terms of just a 1v1, it is truly unwinnable. And now we're moving to the opposite of unwinnable. Against Victory Bell, any fast fire Pokemon with Fire Spin and Fire Blast, the matchup is, I would say, a little winnable. One might even say, very winnable. One where Victory Bell only gets a win con if, like, it somehow gets Stun Spore after they miss their fire moves, and then goes for, like, 3 Swords Dance, which probably won't happen, but that's just me being a hater, as some would say. Next up is Zapdos, and it's way more winnable here than it is with Jolteon. For starters, you're actually faster, and Super Fang is more effective since Zapdos doesn't usually run Rest. But even then, it's still extremely dangerous, but that goes for both of them. Both Pokemon are not having a good time against each other. That's normally where we would end this, but since this is a Patreon video suggested by Plausible, we have 3 more replays to go over. And these are 3 that I think are pretty interesting for Cinderace. Starting off with competition, we have Hitmonlee. Oh boy, this is not going to go well. With Hitmonlee's small, very small amount of special, obviously Cinderace kind of just eats this thing alive. Fire Blast does like almost 70, which is just hilarious. Could you imagine if Cinderace had a Psychic move? This Hitmonlee would be dead. Next up, it's time for real competition. That being with Fire types. Or a Fire type. The only one in Gen 1 that matters, and that's Moltres. Agility means it's faster, and obviously, with Fire Blast and High Jump Kick, you're not immediately killing Moltres. But at the same time, they're not immediately killing you either. Fire Blast is not going to do much to Cinderace, and since it's a Fire type, it's not getting burnt either. So Fire Spin is resisted, which gives Cinderace chances to go for more Super Fangs. But even if Cinderace goes for more Super Fangs, it's still not immediately killing Moltres. So it's a very awkward game where both have Fire Spin, and both can be super fast, but neither have a way to kill each other immediately. So it's a could go either way, where I really don't think one has an edge over the other. Last but not least, we have Aerodactyl. The last video I did showed Aerodactyl, like, walling, or what's it called, stunting? And I feel like this was an interesting one. I was originally going to say that Aerodactyl would actually have a pretty good matchup here, going for Reflect and stalling out High Jump Kick. But Super Fang is a big game changer here. And Super Fang might not even be needed since you have such a good crit rate. Aerodactyl isn't actually able to go for Reflect and rest off those High Jump Kicks, because sooner or later you're getting a crit. And when that happens, Aerodactyl is not going to have a good time. And because of Super Fang, you don't even need 2 crits in a row. One Super Fang and then into a critical High Jump Kick is very consistent. So yeah, sorry Aerodactyl, that's a shame. But overall, here is the tier list. And I guess for these two, Rhydon and Jolteon, you can argue them being could go either way. But for the purposes of making the tier list look better, I'm keeping them in bad matchups. What do you think? Do you think Cinderace would be OU? I think if it does stay in OU, it would easily be one of the more annoying Pokemon. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And until next time, this is Groundback, and I look forward to hearing from you.